Hey, what's up guys? So today we're going to be talking about Dream Mirrors. They recently got some newer support, and let's go and check out what the heck this archetype can do, as it's a really cool idea. You have these monsters that can become light or dark variants of themselves with different effects, and of course it's a very heavy field spell reliant deck, meaning that you need to have either the Dream Mirror of Joy or the Terror up on the board. Now, one play that you can do that, which is really awesome, is giving your opponent one of the cards, and then that way you can basically get both of their effects. So basically it allows you to, as quick effects, tag into the dark or light version of the card, and depending on which one you go into, like this is the Stratos of the deck over here, lets you add any Dream Mirror card, and then on top of that you also have this card that lets you add any Dream Mirror monster. The deck actually has pretty decent consistency, as you definitely need to have the field spells to make the deck more viable. But with the newer edition of Faeking over here, this allows you to go ahead and as a quick effect, tribute it and summon the other boss monster from the extra deck, and then the boss monster from the extra deck can, once it gets destroyed by the opponent's card, you get to bring back another Dream Mirror monster from your graveyard except for itself. You can bring back a boss monster, the dark version of it, which is pretty cool. Now, where the deck lacks in its department is really the disruptions. It does happen to have disruptions, but we'll get into that in a moment. But Earl King is able to, once another monster you control is tributed, except during the damage step, you're able to target a card on the field and destroy it. Now, of course, with Faeking, which is the other boss monster, let me pause it here for a second, go hover over Faeking. So Faeking has the ability to, well, face up, it's also a light attribute, but the main effect is once per turn when a monster effect is activated while Dream Mirror of Terror is in a field zone, as a quick effect, you get to negate the effect. So you have basically a pop and a negate effect. Now, unfortunately, they don't have both of it. And in Yu-Gi-Oh, I feel like what you really need in an archetype is basically having disruptions that let you negate and destroy the effect of whatever it is. And it needs to be like any effect. It can't just be just monster effects or just spells and traps. You need to be able to have a negate anything in order for people to be more incentivized to actually playing the deck. So I would say that this deck will not have a good matchup against like break my board sort of a deck. Or it won't be able to basically have so many disruptions to the point where your opponent will be quitting on you. It's more of a grind game deck, and at the end of the day, it's kind of supposed to be more of an anti-meta-ish deck, as there is technically support to stop your opponent from special summoning a bunch of times with one of the field spell cards. But on top of that, there is also the Black Knight over here, which lets you target a card on the field and destroy it. So there's like a couple disruptions. You can also go into Dingirsu, which is really awesome, which is a fantastic card, obviously with that removal that it has. And on top of that, also protecting your monsters. But the monsters do a pretty good job of protecting themselves, except for obviously by battle, because they're just going to attack into you. But if your opponent would like target one of them, or like let's say do something, you can just tag right out, as most of them will have that quick effect to go ahead and go into another card. Now there's also the One Iori over here, which allows you to make it so if a Dream Mirror is on the field, it just lets you go ahead and bounce back a spell trap, which is kind of weak. Bouncing back a spell and trap, I mean, if it bounced back like a monster and they couldn't respond to it, then we're looking at something that would make the deck a lot better. But if Terror's on the field, you get to draw a card, then you shuffle one card from your hand to the deck. It doesn't even really need that negative downside. But obviously this guy over here has made a pretty good build with Dingirsu over here blocking. But I got a couple different plays. This one, this is Dream Mirror Match. So there's a lot of really cool cards that you can play in this deck. And since you're able to tag out very fast in the deck, going into lights and darks, you can definitely run cards like Avarice, or you can make a Chaos Engine with Daedalus, which actually makes the deck a little bit more able to deal with a board. But again, the main problem that you would have with this deck is you would need the monster's effects to be able to summon, go off, go into the other monster, tag out into the other one, and start getting those extra advantages of it, getting those extra add or special summon to get an established board. But I like the idea of the archetype. Mirror Match is going to be absolutely wild here, because again, you're able to go ahead and tag out into the other one if you happen to have whatever Terror or Joy up on the board. So this one over here, once you happen to have Joy, you can tag out into the light one, and then once the light one's there, you can go ahead and also tag out if you happen to have the Dream Mirror of Terror, you can go into the dark one. So again, that's the whole concept of the deck. And it's a really cool idea, being able to dodge. I remember back in the day there was that like dodge deck with like the Wind Up Rabbit and like the Evil Swarm build. That was a really cool deck. It was very like you you can't hit my monsters. You do anything, I'm bouncing out, right? And it was a really cool concept. But at the end of the day, I mean, obviously that has been way outphased. Now this deck does happen to have some negates, but again, the problem that I have with this deck when you compare it to other things is you only have this effect where you're able to go ahead and as the effect over here, this is once per when a monster effect is activated, and you also have to have terror. Like it runs like Glad Beast. Not only do you have to have the Glad Beast, but you have to also have the War Chariot. Which again, when you add these cards where it's like it's not active unless this is here, you run into those situations where you're just not able to be consistent enough. Even though they have a lot of searchability, you need the other cards, and maybe even like the quick play card to go into the fusion in the first place to even make it. That's where I think the problem lies with the deck. If any of you guys are wondering, is it viable? Because I was spectating and I was actually watching a lot of people play different builds over here, and I'll give you guys deck profiles for multiple of them so you guys can kind of check them out. But at the end of the day, again, I just feel like they don't have what it takes as of right now to become good enough. Because even though there's a lot of consistency with being able to add whatever you want, you're not able to add enough cards. Like, you really need a lot more searchability. They even have a card that's really cool called the Oneiromancy over here, where when your opponent activates a spell or trap while Dream Mirror of Joy is on the field, you get to negate the activation and destroy the card. And with the Dream Mirror of Terror, once that's up on the board, you get to negate a summon. It's like conditional on what you have. Now, obviously with the field spell, and I mentioned before, it's supposed to kind of be an anti-meta deck. Unfortunately, this effect, if it was a lot higher in the damage, if it was 500, we'd be looking at something a little bit more powerful, as your opponent would have to summon, was it 20 something plus times in order for them to like wreck themselves. But Dream Mirror of Terror makes it so each time your opponent spell summons a monster, they take 300 burn damage. But it's only affected while you control a Dark Dream Mirror monster, which isn't really hard to do. But again, it's just like when you add these two cards where it's like this is required to have this and then this goes into this. It just leads the door to too many effects needing to be activated and not being able to go off with it. But this is more of a matchup. We've got Eldritch over here. It also is the Witchcraft. So against like some of the meta decks over here, they would just get wiped out every single time. I had a couple duels, but like they weren't entertaining. It was literally like negate my one summon, or like summon activate effect, negate. Okay, what do you do? Okay, that's it, pass. Unless of course you happen to have any other ways to go ahead and have extenders. But the problem is with the extenders, you need to have like a light or a dark with the Daedalus, which I'll go over in a moment here. But I wanted this deck to be good because they have really cool artwork, and again, they got newer support. Haven't seen anyone mess around with it. I was watching a lot of replays, which is what you guys are seeing when people were playing, and I was like, okay, maybe people just don't have the right build that I'm spectating. I'll go up to YouTube sometimes. You know, you just need to see someone else use the deck and have this cool tech. But man, it just really isn't there. Now, you can get a couple monsters up on the board, and yeah, you can go into like other things in a link deck. You can go make other things, but at that point, it's not really the archetype. I know sometimes people will do deck profiles of like whatever, like Blue Eyes, and all it becomes is like, okay, make Red as Dark Dragoon, and then have like a large attacker, and then just rely off of the game's win condition being literally Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. In fact, so many Yu-Gi-Oh deck profiles these days are like that, where I'm looking at gameplay for ideas of just cheesy, really dumb stuff, and look, it won't even be the deck's win condition of its own archetype. It'll be literally Red Eyes Dark Dragoon activating its effect. Now, in this instance, he actually lost out because, well, he didn't expect the extra 5,000 stats on Madame Berry. But that's what Madame Berry does. She surprises you over there. But I feel like against these lower tier archetypes, it can maybe hang. It is a control deck, and that's what it wants to be at the end of the day. Tagging in and out and lasting like 10 plus turns. But we know in Yu-Gi-Oh, a lot of duels are determined within the first few turns. So anyways, I want to go ahead and actually go into the deck profiles of some of these in case any of you guys want them. I'm not going to really consider this an upgraded deck profile because like the deck is just simply not ready to be played at the moment. But I'll give you guys a few different variants so you guys can go ahead and check them out. There's a card that I really wanted to mention that I think is really strong in the deck. But again, it relies off your archetype popping off, and then you have this other play when your turn comes around to potentially go for Chaos Daedalus, which you summon up by banishing a light or dark, which is obviously really easy in the deck. But then while a field spell is face up on the field, your opponent can't target light or dark monsters you control with card effects. Although again, remember, most of the cards will just tribute themselves and tag out anyway, so it's not really that big of a deal. But you can target cards on the field up to the number of face up field spell cards on the field and banish them, and then you can only use this effect of Chaos Daedalus once per turn. Unfortunately, it is not an 8. If this card was an 8, it would just be so much better. Just because it would allow you to go ahead and again go into Dingirsu as you guys saw. But I'll go ahead and mouse over the cards really quick over here, and then I will just include them down below in the description box for the Discord, and you guys can go ahead and just download them there because it's just much easier. But I want to go ahead and show you guys what else the deck could technically do, and what are the things that are possible in the deck right now. This one over here is actually utilizing another card, Chaos Space, which I think is a good card. It takes a turn and then you just get to go mitigate the minus that you get with it because you're going to put it back and then draw a card. But I think that the deck is just simply not ready yet, even with like the new Fusion, which is a really good card. As you guys saw, it lets you go ahead and tag out. But like at the end of the day, you're looking at 2 disruptions, but the disruptions are like, they don't negate and destroy. One negates and one destroys, and then technically you happen to have the effect of pop with this card over here. So you can maybe get 3 disruptions. I mean, if you draw the other cards, or if you can add them, because technically the deck does have the ability to search out the cards like this over here. It's just that it requires you to have like the correct one, whether it's Terra or Mirror. Sometimes you might want one or the other. And again, when you look at how consistent the deck is, it's weird because like the deck has consistency to add certain cards, but it's not enough of them. Like you need to be able to add like 2 Dream Mirror cards with a lot of the effects to be considered even viable. Or if they just made these like negate and destroy, like both of them had that effect, then I'm thinking that the deck would look to be a lot better over here. But this one is also playing Super Poly, which is a fantastic card in the deck, as you're able to go ahead and just go right into Starving Venom, and then maybe you can try to push for game. But again, the deck doesn't OTK, it doesn't negate enough cards, so at the end of the day, and I mentioned it several times in the video, but it's just how Yu-Gi-Oh is these days. Like if you're not negating every single play that your opponent does, you need to be able to like OTK like dinos or something like that, because control decks are very difficult to play as they are very fragile. And when you make the deck already a little bit more fragile, when it also has to have this card to do this, it's just not looking too good. But I hope the best for this deck, and I hope it gets some support because the idea is really cool. You have like light and dark versions of them, and I love chaos. But anyways, that's my thoughts on the deck. Let me know, guys, what you think of Dream Mirrors. Is there another build that I'm just unaware of, and everyone else on YouTube that I've actually checked out? I just didn't see it like an insane build to throw up these boards where, again, I know that like, you can technically go for this and use this. You make the other cards, but generally, like if you just make Red Dragoon, it just becomes that type of a deck. But anyways, thanks for tuning, guys, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. And if you're new here, subscribe, turn on that bell so you don't miss out when, of course, they finally get some newer, better support. We'll cover them again, see if it's going to be a little bit more viable to be competitive. And if you guys want to send me replays of other Dream Mirror builds or other things, feel free to go and do so at AzneyesReplays@gmail.com or send it in via the Discord in DM. Anyways, catch you guys in the next one, and I'm out. Peace.